All of the pillars within the demon-slaying corps are especially talented individuals who have honed their skills over years to reach the peak of human performance, though among the 9 members exist 2 extraordinary individuals, who were able to ascend to the status of pillar merely 2 months after joining the corps. The first of these is the child prodigy Muchiro, the Mist Pillar, while the other is the blind Buddhist barbarian bludgeoning beasts barehandedly Gyomei Himejima, the Stone Pillar.
It's your main man Knuckles, and we're Media Herd. You ready to go in space? Help me get the emeralds.
Now this video contains spoilers for Kimetsu no Yaiba up into the conclusion of the manga, so if you want to avoid spoilers, you have been warned. Gyomei Himejima is a gentle giant and stone pillar of the demon-slaying corps, along with being a major supporting character in the final arcs of the manga. Not only by the fact that he helped train Tanjiro and his friends to become pillars themselves, or how he assisted in the Infinity Fortress arc, but also in how he took Genya under his wing when he heard of his unique but dangerous approach to hunting demons. And while he may seem friendly and approachable on the surface, Gyomei is actually rather reserved and very distrustful of those around him until they have fully proven themselves, and this is all due to some trauma that he experienced in his youth. Though before we get too into that, let's break down the meaning behind his name and design. So the name Gyomei Himejima is like most names in Demon Slayer, where it's designed to have meaning that applies directly to the character and their personality. Starting first with his family name, Himejima, which roughly breaks down to melancholy or sad crying island, which is represented best in Gyomei's own design and his personality, as I mentioned. He is often depicted as having tears running down his face because he cries extremely easily. Even carelessly discarded trash is enough to break his heart, though this partly comes from his upbringing as a monk and how he was raised to love the world around him and to hate violence. Though, speaking of his teary eyes, his given name, Gyomei, can be roughly translated to go dark, which is in reference to the fact that Gyomei himself is visually impaired, or blind, as in his youth he contracted an illness that gave him an intense fever which caused damage to his optical nerves, causing permanent blindness, which is represented in his design by his lack of pupils, though it did result in a serious case of sensory compensation, where his other senses were enhanced to such superhuman degrees that he developed a replacement for sight essentially, allowing him to avoid harmless pranks by the children that he would watch at the temple, and it resulted in a lot of people doubting that he was actually disabled. And this aspect of his character actually matches up very well with the famous blind Ronin of one of Japan's longest running film series, Zatoichi, who is a traveling swordsman masseuse that lost their eyesight as a child due to an intense fever. Along with this, Gyomei and Zatoichi both have absent fathers, with Gyomei's dying before he was even born, and Zatoichi's leaving when he was very young. They also both have lacking pupils when their eyes are open, though Zatoichi is more clearly having his pupils rolled up rather than them being non-existent. Though, interestingly enough, they also both utilize a different weapon than the standard samurai sword found in their trade, with Zatoichi using a shikomozu, or hidden cane sword, where Gyomei uses a spiked flail and axe Nichiran combination, which is a weapon that is designed to complement Gyomei's own strengths and weaknesses, as the sheer physical strength granted to him as compensation for his lack of eyesight has made the force of his spike flail strong enough to just rip demons' heads off and blow holes in them when he throws it at them. But the most important part is the chain that connects both of them, as it creates vibrations in the air that allows Gyomei to track where either side is at any given time. Along with this, the way the weapon is used, it's clearly inspired by the ninja's Kusarigama, so much so that his fighting style is essentially a modified version of Kusarigama Jutsu, with the main purpose of the weapon being to swing around the weight as if it were a flail and either bludgeon your opponent or ensnare their weapons, which could disable or disarm them. The chain could also be repurposed to block or parry attacks. Along with this, the scythe portion of it is used to cut and slash up close, though in the case of Gyomei, the scythe and weight are replaced with a Scarlet Crimson or Spike Ball and Axe, which works roughly the same, with the most important part of the weapon being the aforementioned chain, as it's said to be so finely crafted that even the superior weapons of the Sengoku period could not compete. And much like the Nichiran blades, these weapons change color as well, but it's hard to notice as the Breath of the Stone's core color is a grayish silver, though what makes these weapons overwhelming in the hands of Gyomei is his combination of them with the Breath of the Stone's own styles. Now, Breath of the Stone is a breathing style that makes up one of the 5 major elements, and it focuses on the environment around the user and utilizing that to deliver sturdy and powerful strikes that can also be used to defend yourself if necessary. And it seems like these styles were originally designed with a Chigiraki in mind instead of a Kusarigama. They have been somewhat retooled by Gyomei in his recent practice of it. But this means that range has always been an aspect of the Breath of the Stone, hence why all of the katas reflect this. And speaking of which, we only know of 5 katas in Breath of the Stone, but each is significant and has a specific use case and some meaning to them. So let's go through each form of the Breath of the Stone, starting with its first kata, Serpentinite Bipolar, where the user throws their flail forward in a spiral motion with the intention of combining the drilling motion of that spiral with the sheer force of the object to burrow through their targets. Along with this, the axe is thrown in parallel with the flail. Now the name is both in reference to the dual-angled nature of the attack, but also the fact that Serpentinite is a specific stone comprised of 2 or more serpentine materials, doubling down on the 2-angle aspect of the attack. Along with this, some traditions believe that Serpentinite is a useful spiritual material that you leave as an offering to the location you are currently at now when you're about to go and face a great obstacle in your life, as it's said to help protect you in your journey. Hence why it is likely selected to be the first kata of Breath of the Stone, because the first kata of a breathing style is one of the most important. Following this, we have the second kata, Heaven's Smash, which is where Gyomei throws his axe forward around the enemy and the spike ball into the air before stomping down on the chain itself, causing the spiked ball to suddenly slam down on a target in mid-air. Now, the name of the attack is likely in reference to the important Buddhist relic, the Sentamani Stone, which is essentially the Buddhist equivalent to the Philosopher's Stone, which is said to have fallen from the heavens, which, given Gyomei is clearly a Buddhist, that makes a lot of sense. Then we have the third kata, Stone Skin, which is a style where Gyomei swings around his weapons in a spiral motion to deflect incoming attacks. This attack name doesn't seem to have any actual direct mythological connection outside of the fact that supernatural entities tend to be described as having stone skin, though there doesn't appear to be any direct reference here. Then we have the fourth kata, Rhyolite or Volcanic Rock Rapid Conquest. This is an attack where Gyomei will attack with each end of his weapon in succession, while slowly reducing the distance between him and his enemy. The name of the attack, as far as I could tell, is seemingly in reference to the rapid flow of lava post a volcanic eruption. Though if we focus more on the Rhyolite aspect of it, the stone is often associated with self-reassurance, which fits with the scene that follows the usage of it, where Gyomei reinforces his belief in demon slaying in the face of Kokushibo's offer to become immortal. Then finally we have the last attack, the fifth kata, Stone Wheel of Justice, where Gyomei lunges into the air and swings his weapon in a circular motion, causing his spike ball to slam around and trap his targets, while the axe spirals behind it, going in for slashes. Now, the name of this attack can be read as the Stone Wheel Prison, which actually matches with the attack's actual purpose. Along with this, it contains the name Gyobu, which is the name of an ancient Tanuki spirit, Inagami Gyobu, which led a rebellion against a powerful lord, and when they were ultimately defeated, they got sealed inside the stone prison of Kumayami Cave. And Gyomei actually matches up pretty well with aspects of the Tanuki, given that over the years the yokai has been sort of correlated with Buddhism, using some of their symbolism and impersonating some of their monks in their own legends. Also, their ability to shapeshift into stones or stone statues matches very well with Gyomei's own breathing style, so this connection makes sense to me, especially when it's in reference to one of the most famous legends attached to Tanukis. Though, beyond his mastery of the Breath of Stone, Gyomei was also able to awaken a Slayer mark during his fight with Kokushibo, which appears on the arms of Gyomei in the shape of tectonic cracks that are created via earthquakes. Though he did reach this state with relative ease thanks to his upbringing as a monk, which allowed him to discover the repetitive action technique, which is a technique where he can repeat a personalized action while focusing on a painful memory to increase his overall abilities alongside total concentration breathing. allowing a hunter to attack with strength on par with an upper moon demon. Gyomei achieves this by repeating Nenbutsu chanting, implying that Gyomei himself is a Pure Land Buddhist Sohei, or warrior monk, as one of the common practices of the Sohei would be chanting Namu Amida Butsu, or Hail to the Buddha, and Gyomei says this prayer repeatedly throughout the series, so much so that the happy that he wears over his demon-slaying uniform has all the characters from the chant comprised on it. The Sohei were also known for carrying large prayer beads into battle as well to go along with their Nanbutsu, which can be seen clearly in Gyomei's design. They even use non-standard weapons compared to the warrior clans of the time, which can also be seen in Gyomei's own Nichiren. Though beyond his chanting, Gyomei's strength in this technique is result of the emotions that he feels when he focuses on the tragic memory from his past which ultimately shaped the rest of his life, this being his first true encounter with a demon. Gyomei, when he was younger, was left in charge of looking after 9 orphans within the temple that he was raised in. He was a very gentle soul at this time, never wanting to harm a single thing. He viewed life as precious thanks to his Buddhist upbringing, but his physical status made him good at scaring off lesser threats. So he was left in charge of these kids. And along with this, to prevent demons from attacking his temple, he would normally light wisteria incense all around the area and forbid the kids from leaving their radius, especially at night, though one of the orphans was a troublemaker, this being Kaigaku, the future rival of Zenitsu. Kaigaku decided to break these rules and nearly got killed doing so, but in his moment of desperation, he sold out the other orphans and their location to a demon. He would then lead the demon back to the temple and extinguish Gyomei's protection, which resulted in 7 of 9 of the orphans getting killed, leaving only Kaigaku and the youngest orphan alive with Gyomei inside the temple. He ordered her to stay behind him as he proceeded to fight the demon barehandedly. And even though he was gifted with enhanced physical strength and was able to overpower the demon eventually, he was still gashed across the forehead and left with a very nasty scar. But as I said, he did eventually pin the demon, and Gyomei, knowing it was a do-or-die situation, for the first time attacked another living thing, slamming its face with his fist, again and again and again, unleashing the full force of his strength with each punch, utterly decimating the demon's body and leaving it completely immobile until the morning came. Every second of this was torture for Gyomei, as violence was just against everything he believed in, but he knew he had to do so to protect the only survivor. And at the end of it all, when he thought the worst of it was over, when villagers came to check on the slaughter to see if there was any survivors, the person that he fought so hard to protect, in a panic, blamed Gyomei for the entire incident, calling him a monster, and due to his blood-stained appearance along with the real killer's body dissolved in the sun, Gyomei was the only possible suspect. He was immediately imprisoned for the murder of 7 children, though word of the incident would catch wind with Kagaya, and after hearing him out, Gyomei was freed from the prison and joined the demon-slaying corps. But the damage was already done. The stone pillar had become paranoid of all the people around him, believing that no matter how good someone believes they are, they would still sell him out to save their lives. His heart had grown cold as stone, becoming blunt with his words and action, seen best during Tanjiro's trial actually, where he is blunt about how he wishes to see Tanjiro and Nezuko executed. Though, in joining the Corps, he did find purpose. He was not only eradicating demons with great efficiency, so much so that he became a pillar after only 2 months of being part of it, but he's also seemingly been around longer than the rest of the fellow pillars that we've encountered in the story, meeting Kagaya before they showed any signs of their illness. We know he's been around for roughly 8 years, and in that time, he has actually gone on to be a major figure in the history of some of his co-workers, like on how he saved Shinobu and her sister. He's also one of the most respected pillars in the organization, being both a driving force for Izui, a point of envy for Shinobu, and a fellow cat lover for Mitsuri to bond with. And speaking of which, The Corps also offered him a place to rebuild his trust, as he seems to actually care about his fellow pillars, becoming a beloved member of the group that everyone respected in some way. He had somewhat returned to the man who is watching after all of these orphans. But when Tanjiro brings a demon into their sacred place, it's almost like Gyomei's reaction was in part brought on by the flashback to the worst experience in his entire life. Though, unlike Kaigaku, Tanjiro was taking responsibility for his actions, and his bold honesty allowed Gyomei to fully accept him like he had the pillars beforehand. And together with his companions, Gyomei was able to shatter the long-standing Upper Moon demons in their ranks, working together to bring down the first-rank Upper Moon demon Kokushibo, and he even partook in the final stand against the Demon Lord himself, Muzan. Though this final battle, along with awakening to his Slayer mark in his late 20s, was finally too much for Gyomei. In the calm of Muzan's defeat, he slowly passed away and was finally reunited with those kids that died that fateful day. Though for his efforts as a demon slayer and his devotion to his beliefs, he was later reincarnated into the life cycle as a teacher in a much more peaceful time. Gyomei is a great character who, while being scarcely used throughout the series, was very effective when on screen. He really matches the tone that Gotoge seems to be going for, which is, whenever he was on screen, I always felt like the stakes in the fight had finally turned in favor of the Slayers. He also introduced a fun thing to do on rereads of Kimetsu no Yaiba, as you want to look for when he is actually crying and when he isn't, and why that could possibly be, or look for when his personality leaks through his stone-faced demeanor. Like, one of the best examples of this is when Tanjiro loudly proclaims that he's gonna be the one to kill Muzan. Gyomei is one of the few laughing at that concept, while trying to hide it. And with that all said and done, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. And if you want to enhance your other senses beyond just sight, you can do so by listening and feeling a copy of Shimonetta, A Boring World Where the Concept of Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist at BuyShimonetta.com.